When you are lost at sea, you pray for a ship. You scan the horizon every minute of every hour, looking for that tiny speck of gray steel that represents salvation. You imagine the sailors waving. You imagine the taste of fresh water. You imagine the warm blankets. But sometimes, the ship you see on the horizon isn't there to save you. It is there to kill you. Imagine you have been floating in a yellow rubber raft for 27 days. You are starving. You are sunburnt to the point where your skin is falling off in sheets. You are surrounded by sharks that brush against the bottom of the raft every night, waiting for the rubber to rot. Suddenly, you hear an engine. You look up a plane. You wave your shirt, you scream, you fire a flare. The plane turns, it banks toward you. You cry with relief, they found us. But then, you see the red circle on the wing. The rising sun. It's a Japanese bomber. And it's not dropping supplies, it's opening its bay doors, it's aiming its machine guns. You dive into the shark-infested water to hide from the bullets. You are treading water, kicking sharks in the nose, while bullets rain down from the sky, puncturing the only thing keeping you alive, your raft. This is the story of Louis Zamperini. It is a story that makes fiction look boring. It is the story of an Olympic runner who became a castaway who became a prisoner, and a prisoner who became a legend. It is a story of survival gone wrong in the most extreme way possible, surviving the ocean, only to wash ashore into the arms of the enemy. If you want to know what the human spirit looks like when it is stripped of everything, dignity, food, freedom, and hope, please hit that subscribe * button right now. You need to hear this story because it proves that you can break a man's body, you can starve him, you can beat him, but you cannot break a man who refuses to fall. To understand the fall, we must appreciate the height. Louis Zamperini was extraordinary before he ever got on a plane. He was a troublemaker kid from Torrance, California, who discovered he could run fast, really fast. He made it to the 1936 Berlin Olympics. He didn't win gold, but he ran the final lap so fast, 56 seconds, that Adolf Hitler asked to meet him. He was destined to be the first man to run a 4-minute mile. But then the world broke. World War II began. Louis traded his running spikes for a bombardier's sight. He joined the Army Air Corps. He was stationed in the Pacific. On May 27, 1943, Louis and his crew were sent on a search and rescue mission in a B-24 Liberator named the Green Hornet *. The B-24 was notorious. It was heavy, it was clunky. Pilots called it the flying brick. The Green Hornet was a particularly bad plane. It was barely airworthy. But they had orders. They flew out over the Pacific to look for a missing pilot. While they were 800 miles south of Hawaii, the engines failed. First one, then the other. The plane dropped like a stone. There was no time to radio, no time to bail out. The Green Hornet slammed into the ocean at 200 miles per hour. The impact tore the plane apart. 11 men went into the water. Only 3 came up. Louis woke up underwater. He was tangled in wires. The plane was sinking, dragging him down into the abyss. He blacked out. Then he woke up on the surface. He gasped for air. The ocean was covered in oil, hydraulic fluid, and debris. He saw 2 other heads bobbing in the swells. Phil Phillips, the pilot, and Francis McNamara, the tail gunner. They found 2 life rafts that had deployed from the wreckage. They tied them together. The 3 men climbed in. They were alive, but they were in big trouble. They took inventory of their survival supplies. It was pathetic. A few chocolate bars, a few half pints of water, a flare gun, a fishing kit. That was it. No radio, no sail, no cover from the sun. And Mac, the tail gunner, was panicking. That first night, while Louis and Phil slept, Mac ate all the chocolate. Every single bar. When they woke up, the food was gone. They were drifting in the middle of the largest ocean on Earth, with 0 calories. The Pacific Ocean is not empty. It is a highway for predators. Within days, the sharks arrived. They weren't just small reef sharks. They were oceanic whitetips and mako sharks. They were curious. They would swim right up to the raft. They would rub their sandpaper skin against the bottom of the rubber boat. Louis could feel them through the thin floor. Sometimes a shark would lunge. It would try to jump into the raft. Louis had to fight them off with an aluminum oar. He would smack them in the nose. He would jab them in the eye. They were constantly circling, waiting for a mistake. But the real enemy wasn't the sharks, it was the sun. The equatorial sun cooked them alive. Their skin blistered, their lips swelled until they split, their eyes were burned shut. They hallucinated, they heard choirs singing, they smelled roasting turkey. Louis, ever the optimist, kept their minds active. He described meals. "Okay, boys," he would say, "today we are having spaghetti with meatballs. Let me describe the sauce." He would spend hours describing the preparation of a dish, forcing Phil and Mac to visualize it, to taste it. It was mental nourishment when physical nourishment was gone. They needed water. They prayed for rain. When it rained, it was a miracle. They opened their mouths. They used empty flare cans to catch the drops. They drank until their bellies hurt. But the food problem remained. One day, an albatross landed on Louis's head. The albatross is a massive seabird. Sailors consider them good luck. Killing one is a curse, according to the poem ** the rhyme of the ancient mariner. Louis didn't care about poetry. He cared about starvation. He grabbed the bird by the legs. He snapped its neck. They tore it open. The smell was awful. The meat was tough and fishy. Mac threw up. But they managed to use the meat as bait. Louis caught a fish. They ate the fish raw. They ate the liver. They sucked the eyes for fluid. They had broken the food chain. They were eating the ocean. Day 27. They heard the drone of an engine. They looked up a plane. They waved. They screamed joyfully. The plane banked. Louis saw the red circles on the wings. Japanese 0. Into the water, Louis screamed. They couldn't stay in the raft. They were sitting ducks. All 3 men slid into the ocean. They huddled under the rafts, using the water as a shield against the machine gun bullets. But remember the sharks. The sharks were waiting. As Louis treaded water, holding his breath, he felt the rough skin of a shark brushing his leg. He was trapped between a machine gun above and a set of jaws below. He kicked the shark, he punched it. The bullets hit the water around them. * zip, zip, zip. The plane made one pass, then another. Finally, it flew away. The men climbed back into the raft. They were miraculously unhit. But the raft wasn't. The rubber was riddled with bullet holes. It was deflating fast. If the raft sank, they were dead. For the next few hours, they worked frantically. They used the patch kit, but the patch kit wasn't enough. They had to pump air continuously. They were exhausted, starving, and now they had to fight a sinking boat. The stress was too much for Mac. He had started the journey in a panic, eating the chocolate. He ended it in silence. He wasted away. He stopped talking, he stopped moving. On day 33, Mac died. Louis and Phil were devastated. They held a small funeral, they said a prayer, and they slid Mac's body into the sea. They didn't have to watch for long. The sharks were there instantly. Now it was just the two of them. Louis and Phil. They made a pact. If one of us dies, Louis said, the other one has to eat him. It was the ultimate survival contract. Thankfully, they never had to use it. Day 47. They saw an island. Green trees, white sand. It was real. It wasn't a hallucination. They drifted toward it. They were in the Marshall Islands. They stumbled onto the beach. They could barely walk. They were skeletons wrapped in yellow skin. They kissed the sand. But their relief was short-lived. A Japanese patrol boat found them. They were blindfolded. They were thrown onto a ship. They were taken to Kwajalein, known as Execution Island. On the wall of their cell, they saw the names of other American Marines carved into the wood. Those Marines had been beheaded. Louis and Phil expected to die. They were beaten. They were starved. They were used as guinea pigs for medical experiments. They were injected with strange substances to see how their bodies reacted. This was the gone wrong. They had survived the impossible ocean, only to land in a torture chamber. Louis was transferred to a POW camp in Japan called Amori. And there he met the devil, Corporal Mutsuhiro Watanabe. The prisoners called him the Bird. The Bird was a psychopath. He derived sexual pleasure from inflicting pain. He found out Louis was an Olympian. He made Louis his special project. "You are the famous runner," the Bird would say. "I will break you." He beat Louis every day. He hit him with a kendo stick. He hit him with a belt. He made Louis do push-ups over a latrine pit until he collapsed into the waist. He woke him up in the middle of the night to beat him. He wanted to see the Olympian beg. But Louis wouldn't beg. His defiance only made the Bird angrier. The climax of this torture came one freezing winter day. The Bird ordered Louis to pick up a heavy wooden beam. It was a railroad tie, basically. "Pick it up," the Bird ordered. "Hold it over your head." Louis was emaciated. He weighed less than 100 pounds. He had dysentery. He lifted the beam. His arms shook. The Bird stood there with his gun. "If you drop it, the guard will shoot you." Louis held it. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. His muscles were screaming, his vision blurred. The other prisoners watched in silence. The Bird laughed. He poked Louis in the stomach with a stick. "Drop it," the Bird taunted. Something ignited in Louis. The same fire that made him run that final lap in Berlin. He locked his elbows. He stared straight into the Bird's eyes. He held that beam for **37 minutes**. The Bird was furious. He couldn't break him. In a rage, the Bird punched Louis in the stomach. Louis dropped the beam. He collapsed. But he had won. He had proven that his spirit was stronger than the wood, and stronger than the monster holding the gun. August 1945. The atomic bombs fell. The war ended. An American plane flew over the camp dropping food, cigarettes, and magazines. Louis Zamperini walked out of the camp a free man. But he wasn't whole. He returned to America a hero, but he brought the war with him. He suffered from severe PTSD. He had nightmares about the bird every single night. He started drinking. He nearly destroyed his marriage. He became obsessed with returning to Japan to hunt down the bird and kill him. The survivor was slowly dying of hatred. But the story has one final twist. His wife dragged him to a tent revival, meeting in Lowe's Angels. The speaker was a young Billy Graham. Louis didn't want to go. He hated religion. But he listened. And he remembered a promise he made on the raft. In the middle of the storm on day 40, when the waves were crashing over them, Louis had prayed, "God, if you get me home alive, I will serve you forever." He remembered the deal. He went home that night and poured all his alcohol down the drain. The nightmare stopped instantly. Years later, Louis returned to Japan. Not to kill the bird, to forgive him. He met with his former captors. He hugged them. He tried to meet the bird, who was alive and in hiding, but the bird refused to see him. Louis sent him a letter. "I forgave you," he wrote. "Love replaced the hate." The story of Louis Zamperini defines the word unbroken. It is the ultimate gone wrong because survival wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a new hell. Most survival stories end when the helicopter arrives. Louis' story continued into the darkest pits of human cruelty. It teaches us that survival is physical, but resilience is spiritual. He survived the ocean by eating fish eyes. He survived the camp by holding a beam. But he survived the asterisk aftermath by forgiving. That was the hardest feat of all. In 1998, at the age of 81, Louis Zamperini returned to Japan one last time. He ran a leg of the Olympic torch relay for the Nagano Winter Games. He ran past the very place where he had been imprisoned. He smiled. He waved. The boy from Torrance, the castaway, the prisoner, the drunk, the survivor, had finally finished the race. The scene with the beam is one of the most powerful moments in history. It gives me chills every time. It's like a real-life superhero moment. Do you think you could have forgiven the bird after everything he did? That takes a strength I can barely imagine. Let me know in the comments below. If you are inspired by the unbreakable Louis Zamperini, please hit that asterisk like asterisk button and subscribe asterisk. I have a story coming next week about a man who crashed his plane in the jungle and used the wreckage to fight off lions for 3 days. Stay safe, never give up, and remember, if you can take it, you can make it.